Trinidad Legacy Stories, The Merikins. Brought to you by the National Gas Company, at the forefront of energy.
Religion has been a sustainable force for the Americans wherever they are located.
There were only two religions or denominations here at the time: Roman Catholics and Anglicans. The third group of religious persons to be in this country were Baptists. Merikins, to be specific. So the Merikins brought with them the Baptist faith. They were already part of the Baptist movement in the United States of America. William Hamilton seemed to have made it his mission to start a Baptist church in each company. The churches were small, they were struggling, and they needed help. And that is when the Baptist Missionary Society came in, the London Baptists came in. One of the policies of the missionaries was not just to be missionaries of the gospel. They came with a policy of starting churches as well as schools. They became Baptists in America at a time when what was known as the revivalist movement was taking place in America. And so the style of worship in America at the time was very exuberant, very physical. It was exciting. They sang, they clapped, they danced. The missionaries began to clamp down on that style of worship. And some of the people began to separate themselves from the Americans. They were then called disobedient Baptists. But of course, they call themselves independent Baptists. I believe branching off from the independent, the spiritual Baptists who wanted a little bit more of the African culture and the African religious practices to be maintained. Some of the differences that exist between the London Baptists and the spiritual Baptists have to do with their veneration of saints and their veneration of the ancestors. They use drawings, they use chalk, they use all kinds of paraphernalia. The London Baptists avoid the use of paraphernalia.
Regardless of the organization you belong to, we are all spiritual. And that's what makes a clear distinction of who we are. And Papa Nezer was a spiritual healer. He has contributed significantly to the Baptist work.
So he wasn't just involved in religion in terms of the spiritual, but he looked also at the healing of the body. And that's another connection that I think we are missing today in the church, that we are so focused on the spiritual that we forget that we are in this world. And God has provided all kinds of herbs and trees and fruits and berries for the healing of our bodies as well. He was ahead of his time.
Papa Nezer was known to be the healer. You're not well, they would say, just go to Papa Nezer. Calypsonians and a lot of people have it as Obia. He was the Obia man. But again, it was a beautiful side of what represents Obia.
He was widely respected for his ability to help people to overcome their circumstances, whether it was medical or spiritual. This bottle in my hand has a variety of snakes in it. This was used to help treat ailments such as the common cold. We also have a goblet that was used by him. The goblet was used to store water. We have a picture of him, and in this picture you see him in his lodge clothes because he was also a lodge man. And on the far left, my far left, we have two butters that were his flambeau butters used to provide lighting because back then he did not have access to electricity.
Papa Nezer's legacy is a rich legacy.
it will be the Baptist Faith. It will be the Merikins. Definitely one of the more popular Merikins that we have today. It will be the ORISHA Faith, because they always call his name when we give offerings. He's one of the ancestors that is right there with the others. So with that, he stands the test of time and his name will always be called. And I hope and I pray that his name will always be called, because of that being that great healer, that great helper, and most of all, a best Merikin.
Trinidad Legacy Stories, The Merikins, brought to you by the National Gas Company, at the forefront of energy.